Sometimes we compromise before we start. And I think some of this comes from if you're working on a complex project and you're trying to build relationships with your team, and you know that you're coming purely from a design perspective or an engineering perspective or a project management perspective and delivery, then you know you're coming in with your very specific agendas, and you know that there's certain things you want to fight for, but equally you know around the table there's certain things that other expertise and other experiences and other consultancies want to fight for. So you anticipate this because you think this is the right thing to be doing. I'm anticipating all the challenges, I'm anticipating all the obstacles along the way. And I think when you think so much about this before you go into these sessions, then you feel like you have to compromise before you start. You probably don't propose that big, bold idea that should be put out there because you're worried about the consequences of that decision or that idea not being taken seriously or affecting your reputation or whatever that might be. And I just think that so often on projects, we have these one or two big decisions that are made quite early on that have this huge ripple effect throughout the lifetime of a project. And sometimes those decisions do need to be made early and they need to be held throughout. There's no question that in some instances that's correct. But more often than not, those big decisions that have been made early have been made with limited information, or with the intel that is available at the time and with the best of intentions. But unless you revisit that big bold decision with the new information that you are accruing over time with the project, you're at risk of having that big bold decision setting things in stone that don't need to be set in stone. And I think it's so interesting that it's this idea that we don't want to create unnecessary conflict in a team, and you don't. And you want to build relationships with your team in the most constructive way possible, and you do. But you need to be able to challenge some good ideas in order to get to some brilliant ideas. And I think we can, certainly when we get to complex projects and we get large volumes of people and large expertise around the table, it's so easy to just get swayed by the loudest voice or the person that seems to have the most conviction with what they're saying and in the right position to make decisions. We can be so swayed by that conviction and that title that we might lose sight of some other things to be pursuing. And at the end, we might actually end up with such a compromised outcome that it is such a shame, and it doesn't reflect all the talent around the table and the ideas that have been pursued in the shadows for the project. So I think that leaders need to constantly be this curious individual around the table that challenges decisions that have been made early to just validate them, make sure that they're still the right things. And if there's people around the table who can like they've been observing, they maybe haven't been as vocal, and invite them in with their feedback. What are we missing here? And I think the way you can find out if you're compromising too early is to really stop and ask yourself and the team, if we go down this route, what will we miss? What are we losing as a result of going down this route? Can we pursue something for a certain period of time to test it in order to find out more information, to understand the risks, to see where this goes, and then pull back? What does that look like? Can we revisit some of these decisions? Can we challenge that idea in 6 months' time if we know different information? And I think when you can ask yourself some questions around what you're losing and what it is that you and the project will gain if you do pursue something, those are the things to be asking rather than just trying to keep the peace and accepting too much compromise too early.